and that means it's time for a look at the financial markets, brought to you by Forsyth Barr. I'm joined this morning by investment strategist Zoe Wallis to talk about the reporting season, housing market, a whole bunch of stuff. Zoe joins me now. Zoe, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
Good to see you.
You too.
And not on Zoom, finally.
Nice to be here in person.
Nice
Thanks
to
for
have
having
you
me.
here. Now, we had, of course, the Reserve Bank last week come out with 25 basis points, but they're signalling more to come, potentially down to 2.5%. Yep. What are we seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think last week's decision was a little bit more dovish, and obviously talked about that a bit, but pretty clearly worried about the weakness that we're seeing coming through in the economy, particularly after a weak second quarter. Feels like we kind of go back and forth, are we having seen more green shoots, or are they turning brown? Are there more green shoots turning brown? It's been like that for the last couple of years, which is getting pretty tough for the average New Zealander. Again, we're seeing a few more coming through in the latest monthly data, but a healthy degree of cynicism or scepticism is waiting to see, will that become self-sustaining, and will the NZ economy finally be able to get firing as we get towards the end of this year and into next? Yeah,
it's a vicious kind of cycle that it feels like we're in. It's kind of like I was thinking yesterday, because I'm getting a haircut this week. When you get a haircut and it looks good, well, you get a haircut and you're like, hey, good, I needed that to happen. But then it takes a while for it to actually look good, you know what I mean?
Settling in period?
Yeah, a couple of weeks where you sort of go through an ugly phase. Are we sort of in that right now? And hopefully, it will look good soon? Yeah,
and look, I think it's not, why there's pockets, it's patchy, right? So what we're seeing is the agri sector, the horticultural sector, exports are actually doing pretty well. Dairy prices, beef prices are all performing really strongly. That's helping our farmers. You'll have seen Fonterra obviously edged up their forecasts. So, there are pockets that are doing well, but it's the big cities that are really struggling. When you look at Auckland and Wellington, and that's almost 50% of the economy. They're yet to get firing, and those are the places where you're seeing the weakest housing markets, you're seeing consumers being quite conservative, you're seeing unemployment rates relatively high. So all of those pieces, until you really get the engine of the economy, other engines of the economy going, it's going to take a bit of time.
And speaking of the housing market, the outlook from the Reserve Bank's projections, I mean, again, depending on where you are, you look at Queenstown's Lakes, it's like nothing ever happened. There was no post-COVID slump. But for the rest of us, it's not exactly going to be taking off in a hurry.
No, pretty anemic growth is probably how you describe it. Flat to maybe some mild price increases of, say, 3 to 5% over the next couple of years. But look, when you look at inventory levels as well, there's a lot of stock on the market at the moment. Really is still a buyer's market at this point in time. Lower interest rates should help start to see things come through and a bit more activity pick up, but that's slow going at the moment.
What about population? I mean, immigration obviously important.
Yeah. Very important, and when you think about New Zealand's natural population, we're actually having fewer and fewer kids, so our natural population's declining. We actually rely on immigration to supplement our labour force, to actually help drive economic growth as well. When you look back to 2023, our population growth was over 2%. It's now below 0.5%. So pretty slow, and that means just less people in the economy spending money essentially, which means that everyone else has to work harder. So either you've got to lift productivity, or you're just going to be facing slower economic growth probably in the near term.
Picking on some of those individual companies, obviously Fonterra, wow, that sale on Friday, and then you look at Sky Television, for example, profit down 58%.
Yeah, it's a real mixed bag this reporting season so far, and obviously we're hitting into the real midst of the heavyweights this week. But what we're seeing is it's pretty patchy depending on what sector you're exposed to. And the cyclicals, being that it's the past 6 months, not looking forward, so far what we're seeing is that reflection of what we've been expecting to see in GDP growth playing out for a lot of those cyclical companies as well. That turnaround hasn't really taken hold as yet. This week, hopefully see a few more of those green shoots, but so far it has been pretty patchy.
Yeah, all right. So thank you so much for that. Good to see you.
Thank you.